All right, third shower on this house. This is the one I'm the most excited for just because of the tile selections. It's gonna be really cool. I'm just prepping the lid with rod cap foam shims, ranging from 1/2 inch down to nothing. Got my Go Board Pro cut, pre-marked, put the washers in just so it's easy. I'm gonna stick that up there and then I'm gonna prep this one for a lath and scratch and brown 2-coat mud float just because it's fun, I like it. And this gets a 1/2 inch by 4 inch black marble mosaic vertical running through the niche and up all the walls and across the ceiling. And then the floor is gonna be sick. I'm super excited for that. So that's what we're doing. I love Thursdays because that means it's Friday Eve. All right, got my line wire put up. So I use this 16 gauge wire from Home Depot and string it across the studs. And in the past, I've always used roofing nails and just pounded them in, and it's super solid. But I just realized that my 1-inch crown stapler is way faster and works just as good. So you want to get it super tight. So you stretch it, tack it on each end, and then tack it up and down to get it tight. And the purpose of this is to hold the lath from flexing, really just until the scratch coat dries. So just gonna keep all those bays solid as I install my lath and do my scratch coat. I also go through and put in blocking at the top sometimes just to keep that top from bowing in. So anyway, getting ready to now hang 6 mil poly over the whole thing and then lath, and then we'll scratch it. Gonna be bomber. All right, I got my 6 mil poly up. You can see that rests against the wire, and basically its only purpose is just to keep the mud from spilling in while we're floating. Since I do a topical waterproofing with a bonding flange drain, I'm not relying on this for any kind of waterproofing. It's just to keep my mud from spilling into the walls. So now I hang my lath, and then when I scratch it, as I push the mud in, it'll stop right there. So that gives us a nice backing for it. And I wrap my corners with lath. I use these plaster corners. It's kind of 50-50 between mud guys. Some wrap corners, some don't. I always have and I always will. I think it's the best way to do it. My mud showers do not crack, and I don't use silicone in the corners, and they just don't crack. They just don't. That's the way it is. So super bomber. That's how I do it. You can do it however you want. So anyway, about to hang some lath. So now I'm installing some cap strip. So this is what they used to use in the olden days, and a lot of people still do, to float countertops with. You staple that around the edge, float your countertop, tile it. This dude named Chris Stover in California showed me this trick. If you don't know who he is, you should, because he's one of the best, probably the best, most talented tile mud guys that I know. Does a lot of amazing work. Anyway, this is how he does his floats. So I just recently started incorporating this. So I've got these tacked up with a laser, hopefully to hit full tiles at the top and bottom, so I can just ride my mud off of those. And I gave myself a teeny bit, a little bit of wiggle room because I don't have the tile here, but based on the dimensions on the website, I think I should be pretty spot on. But yeah, and you can see I've got one sheet of lath wrapped through that niche, and that's all going to be super crazy monolithic bomber, flat level plumb square, hard as a rock, lasts forever. Got all the lath up, getting ready to do the scratch coat. You can see it's nice and tight. Maybe you can't see, but it is nice and tight. Got it lapping over my cap strip, reinforced in all the corners. I use little zip ties right at the overlaps between stud bays just to keep that flap from filling up with mud and kicking out. It's just something I've kind of figured out over the years. Most of what I do is just kind of evolution of doing things that didn't work or caused me problems and trying to figure out a solution for that. So anyway, this thing's ready to do a scratch coat on. It's about 1:30. That'll take me about an hour, then I'll call it a day. So in theory, after this is scratched and floated, you could remove all that lumber and everything from behind it and it would stay freestanding as its own monolithic structure. That's how strong a 2-coat scratch and brown mud job is. Probably a little overkill, but that's how I like to do things. All right, got some mud mixed up, ready to scratch this. So I got this hawk in 2002. I remember because my wife was pregnant with our first son, and I didn't like the wooden handle that was on it. So I used this Milwaukee hammer drill handle to put on it, and it's been on there ever since. I bought this to float my first shower. Tried to float it, and went so horribly that I didn't try to float another one until about 2009 because I had no idea what I was doing. But I did hold on to the Hawk. It's sentimental for me. Hope it never breaks. If it does, I'll put that handle on the next one, hopefully. So anyway, it's seen a lot of use in the last 15 years, and it's still going strong. I like it. It's nice and broken in, and I don't know, just feels comfortable in the hand. So just burn it into the lath really good. And what makes this method, the 2-coat scratch and brown, so strong is the mud goes through the lath and kind of creates fingers through it, and then it interlocks on the other side, so it encompasses that lath completely in mud. And so this is maybe a 1/4 inch thick behind the lath, and then by the time we add our plum coat, it's like 3/4 of an inch thick. And when it all dries together, it's just insanely strong and solid. You can bounce a sledgehammer off of it. Let me just take this scarifier, lightly scratch it, and then tomorrow's mud will bond like that, or to that really well. So anyway, that's how it goes. There we have it, scratch coat. I took 6 bags. I went super thick on this section right here because that wall needs to be built out an extra 5/8 of an inch to make this all square. It doesn't always matter, but on this one, it really does. I want it to be square because this floor tile, the mosaic, it will be super noticeable if it's not square. Same with the mosaic that's on the walls. If it's not square, it will show on those ceiling lines. So just want to get everything squared up. Anyway, that is the scratch coat. Tomorrow it'll be dry enough that it'll support itself without moving, and we'll do the brown coat, which will bond right to it. And that is how you do a scratch and brown 2-coat lath and mortar float, more or less. It's about 3 o'clock. I'm going home. See ya. Next day, this is the scratch coat. You can see it's really dry where I went straight over the studs instead of open bays, and it's dry enough everywhere else that it's nice and solid. Some people wait 3 days to float the brown coat over the scratch coat. I don't. I always try to do it the next day. I just prefer it that way. I've done lots of core samples. It bonds like crazy. It becomes extremely strong and monolithic. That's just my preference. I don't like it to be so dry that it just sucks your mud dry so fast. It's already going to do that as it is. I don't think I'll make a lot of videos today, but I'm making this one just in case I change my mind. I really want to just focus and get this thing knocked out and go home early for a Friday, but it is quite solid already. So here we go, all set up. Got my float strips cut, soaked, ready to go. What the hell, I might as well make some videos. So yesterday I lined out my square lines on this floor, and I do it under my plastic so that as my mud's dropping, I can just wipe that off and see my square line. So to get this shower square, I'm gonna have to bring this wall out about half an inch further than this wall. That'll square everything up with the room. This is an old house, and you know, that's pretty normal. And then all 3 walls bow in slightly at the top. So all of these float strips are gonna go from thin up to thicker, which is a pain in the ass, but that is why we float, because you can just do it with mud right then and there, and you don't have to go back and forth trying to cut and plane and shim and all that stuff. Just pile some mud on there, slap the level on it, get it plumb, firms up. As long as you're plumb from bottom to top, your shower will be square at the bottom and at the top, unless you fuck it up. All right, so I got the float strips all set. This is, in my opinion, probably the hardest part of floating, especially over a scratch coat, and also the most important part, because your float strips dictate your plumb, your square, everything. So I really was focused on making sure I got this wall square, because I had to build this side out way thicker than this side, and then also up top, this wall bowed in, so this is really thick up here. But I did get it square, so by having this all square, then my floor tile pattern will have equal cuts all the way around, and my little teeny linear mosaics that run up this wall will then flow straight across here. If that was kicked out of square, that 1/2 inch mosaic, you're really gonna see it. So by having it square on the bottom, everything plumb, and it's also square on the top. And these are firmed up and ready to go. So I'm gonna mix up some more mud, get floating. So I've got the 2 side walls floated, and I start with those for a reason, because the straight edge I'm using for this back wall is long enough that, or is short enough, or whatever you want to say, that I have to set my float strips quite a ways in from the edges. So by floating these walls first, as I'm screeding, that straight edge can hit that corner and not mess up my mud. If I floated this back wall first and then these side ones, I would dig into my mud all the way up while I'm doing it. So now when I float this back wall, my straight edge rides on that float strip on both sides. So as I'm rocking it back and forth, it's not dinging up my corners. So sequencing in something like this is important to save yourself some work and some headache, and bang out that back wall. All right, it's about 11. Got all my mud up. This section right here is so thick. I mean, I really had to go in thin layers, wait like 5 to 10 minutes between each layer. That scratch coat, because it's so dry, as soon as you put fresh mud on it, it's sucking the moisture out of it. But if you try to go too thick, it's gonna just slide. And I've had that happen before. I had a 10-foot wall completely floated. It was a cold night in December in 2012, and I got it all floated, and I was getting impatient. I wanted to go home. It was like 7 o'clock, and so I decided to start to rub it just a teeny little bit, and I saw a little mud bubble start to fill out, and so I tried to push it back in with my trowel, and the whole wall just went just slid down right on my feet. Very frustrating. Ended up staying till about midnight to fix it. So you got to be patient. Timing is important. Just let it cook, let it do its thing. I know this is a super big mess. You know, sometimes I'm a little cleaner. This one, I was just really trying to get mud up in a hurry. So I'm gonna let all this sit for 15 or 20 minutes while I eat this pizza that the superintendent, Sean, from Solid Renovation Company just brought me. This is my first job for these guys, and so far they are just awesome. Really enjoy them. He's the best. It's great to work with good people who treat you with respect and are kind and accommodating, and he brought me a pizza, so he's awesome. He's also a rock star. I know most of us tile guys think we're rock stars. He actually is one. So he was in a band and toured all over Europe, and yeah, it's been fun hanging out with him on this job. So anyway, I'm gonna eat, and then I will probably gonna cut or pull those strips so I can float the back of that niche. We'll see, haven't decided yet. All right, so I'm waiting for this wall, this thick one, to firm up. I went ahead and set my float strips in the niche. So when I'm setting these, I gotta be careful that they are the same distance from the front of my finished wall here, because this gets a 4-inch long by 1/2 inch wide mosaic. It's gonna flow up through there. And if one of these was tweaked back too far, that 4-inch piece would not fit. So I set these both at 3 3/4 at top and bottom, 3 3/4. So that gives me a teeny bit of wiggle room. I can shave a teeny bit of those off and get full tiles right across there. You know, hopefully, if it works out. Anyway, these side walls are pretty firm. It's crazy how fast they get firm over scratch coat. So I'm gonna finish detailing a little bit of this and then start pulling the strips on those, and then I'll float the niche. Yeah, buddy, it's Friday. That's about 12:30. I really want to let this just fire off really good before I pull these strips, because it's so thick in a few places. So I just went over everything again with my straight edges, carved off any excess mud, really scraped it tight against my strips to make sure it was nice and flat. And now I'm just gonna let it cook for a minute while I clean up and do some other stuff. And I think I'm about out of videos for one post, so that's about it. I'm gonna pull the strips, fill those in with mud. I just screwed this go board up here to give me a nice edge. I'm gonna carve that down with my trowel and pull those off, then I get a nice square edge for my mitered returns. And got this niche all floated. Put it on a little thick on the edges, just gonna wait till it firms up so I can just carve it off. And after I fill the strips, I'll just rub it all down really nice and pretty and make it look good. That's the plan. All right, there it is. It's 2:15. I'm gonna do a quick coat of waterproofing upstairs on another shower and then go home. You know, it's not perfect, but I'm pretty happy with it. Plumb, level square, flat, no deflection, super solid. It's gonna be really nice to set small tiles over. So yeah, I like doing mud. There's obviously faster ways, you know, less messy ways, but I don't think there's a better way, personally. It's not for every job, but sometimes it is. So, a lot of fun. What I really love about mud is the corners. Just nice, crisp corners all the way down. Super solid, not gonna crack. Happy Friday, thanks for watching.